and welcome to CityView. I'm your host, Marissa Monroy. Austinites gathered to welcome the holiday season at one of our most cherished traditions, the 59th annual Zilker Tree Lighting Ceremony. Before the big moment, attendees enjoyed food, live music, and a chance to learn more about city services. Then came the highlight, the 155-foot Zilker tree, glowing with more than 3,300 LED lights, officially lighting up the park for the season. And as always, the celebration continued with music, dancing, and families enjoying time together swirling under the tree. Austin's art scene is more than creative expression. It reflects the diverse communities that shape our city. In 2023, the city launched the Thrive Grant program, supporting local arts nonprofits with funding to help them grow, sustain, and flourish. These grants, funded by hotel occupancy taxes, help strengthen cultural institutions that make Austin a vibrant arts destination. One of the recent recipients is the Indian Classical Music Circle of Austin, which has been bringing incredible music, dance, and fusion performances to our community for more than 30 years. Here's a closer look at what they're doing.
The organization that's sponsoring today's event is the Indian Classical Music Circle of Austin. It's been in existence since 1991, and we have served over 100,000 people, not billions, but 100,000 here in Austin.
And now, please join me in warmly welcoming Rakesh Chaurasia and Gauri Shankar. Enjoy the show.
We have been members of ICMCA for more than 30 years, and we really love their programming because they bring to us some of the most eminent artists from India.
Well, this music is very important for the connection of society and to be connected to each other. I think music, and especially our classical music, you can take it as a spiritual meditation, and is the best thing to be closer to God.
Because of the Thrive Grants, we could bring one of the biggest and most popular, world music band, Shakti, that we hosted 2 years back. So it's a big impact for the Austin people.
We are a totally volunteer-run organization. Our overheads are zero, and we have done really well, but you cannot scale up. So without this grant, we wouldn't have been able to get professional help to organize large-scale events. And that's where we have used this money most effectively.
As a not-for-profit, obviously we do have to make some money to be able to do these things and provide space for these types of performances. And so the grant supports not only ICMCA bringing their community together, but spaces like ours where we can host and facilitate those community members coming together.
We are glad that we are able to provide this kind of entertainment and culture and support for the arts. And this is possible only because of the hotel occupancy tax. And all you have to do is come to one of our concerts, come to one of our events, and you will really know the impact that we are making.
To explore upcoming performances and events, visit icmca.org. And if your organization is a local arts nonprofit looking to grow, you can learn more about the Thrive Grant program and how to apply at austintexas.gov/thrive. There's something new to see in Circle C, an art installation called Blossom Gazes by artist Yulia Lenina. It's located at the end of the trail at Slaughter and Escarpment, and it features 2 tall, colorful flowers, each with an eye at the center. Lenina says the design is meant to show the way nature watches us, just like we watch it. Friends, family, and representatives from several city departments joined her for the unveiling. She hopes the piece brings moments of joy, curiosity, and reflection for everyone who comes across it.
I would like for these pieces to bring joy to people. I think that's really the main sort of, to bring the smile. I mean, there is like a meaning behind it, what I talked about, but it's also, I want it to be playful and fun. So I think I want people to walk by and actually, as long as it brings a smile to their face, that's really what I would like.
Public art has always been important in terms of being able to reflect communities' values, communities' perspectives. It feels like nowadays, especially with so much of our lives being digital and being in front of some sort of screen, that having artwork out in nature, in the community, to be able to give people that opportunity to take a pause and reflect is so important.
Austin's music scene is known for its richness and history. This fall, a family who helped shape that history was honored at one of the city's well-known landmarks. Jonathan Thomas has this story.
Located near the state capitol, the Oakwood Cemetery is a place where many of the city's most recognizable names rest. And on a September Saturday, a true pioneer in the music world and the family that followed in his footsteps were honored by some of the best local musicians in the capital city, where the Lomax family is buried. As the music chronicled by Texas ex John Avery Lomax Sr. and his family filled the air inside the Oakwood Cemetery Chapel as part of the Lomax American Legacy Concert. John Avery Lomax Sr. and his son Alan traveled around the country, particularly the South, recording folk and blues music from many legendary artists such as Leadbelly and Muddy Waters, as well as just plain folk, chronicling the music in a large series of published works. And for the artists selected to perform, the day was nothing short of special.
As a musician and a lover of the history of the music, it was just an honor to be able to play and pay tribute to John and Alan Lomax, two of the foremost collectors and archivists of American music out there.
I didn't really truly know the history of the family until this event, and I did a little bit of research and I was like, oh, okay. So they recorded a couple of artists that I grew up and listened to back in the day when I was in high school. That's pretty cool.
Among other places, their work is archived in the Library of Congress. And on this particular day, for the audience to see and hear that work come to life was a real treat.
Just a wonderful way to keep the history and the stories alive here in Austin, and to introduce people to, these lesser known aspects of the city. I mean, I didn't know that they were buried here. I knew they went to UT and worked out at UT, but I did not know that they were buried here. So it was just great to be able to celebrate that and, show people just a different aspect or a lesser known aspect of the city.
There's still a big appreciation for that kind of music, even in the modern era. And to see, all forms and walks of life still enjoy that kind of music and still are inspired to pick up that music and carry it on, I think is a very beautiful thing. That's all right. Knowing that we're carrying that forward is a great thing.
And now we catch up with City Council member Marc Duchen to talk about what's going on in District 10.
Hi, I'm Councilmember Marc Duchen, and I represent District 10 in West Austin. And one of the biggest risks and challenges in my district and really all of Austin is wildfire preparedness and prevention.
The city is at great risk. We are fifth in the nation. Outside of California, we are the top spot for risk for wildfire.
One of the first things that we did, we recognized going into serving in January that this was a critical issue for not just my district, but the whole city. And so we built a wildfire action plan that covered a lot of code and preparedness, basically what the city can do as well as what the public can do to prepare for a wildfire and emergency. And then we've been at work really hard since then implementing that, working with my colleagues and working with city staff to make sure that we can get those pieces in place so we are better protected from wildfires. This is consistently at the top of people's highest priorities for the district, and I think they recognize the risks. So the district's topography, the district's vegetation makes us the prime candidate in the whole region for wildfires. And so we've got an acute risk. That said, a lot of the other parts of Austin that are east of Mopac, that are grassland, also have an acute risk of wildfire. That area actually has more fires that start than west of Mopac, and those fires tend to spread more quickly. So it's important for all of us across the city, not just in my district, to acknowledge the threat that wildfires pose. In my district, we have a very active community in the Firewise Alliance that meets, and we're trying to expand that to include other parts of the city in Northwest, Southwest, and Central Austin that also share a similar risk factor, to make sure that we've got the community engagement around this and the visibility around this issue so that people are taking the appropriate steps that they can take as residents, as homeowners, for their own preparedness, their own evacuation strategies. To be prepared. 15 years ago, we had major fires in Bastrop and major fires in Steiner Ranch, and what they often overlook is that we, as a result of what's called the ember cast, that's the wind spreading embers in what can be now known as upwards of a mile and a half radius around that fire, there are also lots of little fires that started all over Austin. And so it's important to recognize that even when you do have a fire, whether it's in or outside of the district, it can spread very easily under the right circumstances to other parts of the district and other parts of the city and even outside the city. So we're all in this together, and that's part of what I hope to reinforce as I go talk to residents in the community about the risk factor. When we started, we built out a wildfire action plan, and that included things that the city could do in terms of resources, in terms of code changes, and that also included things that the public can do and homeowners and residents can do in terms of preparedness and readiness. And so in terms of the things that we've done since then, there are a couple major pieces. One is we passed an update to what's called the Wildland Urban Interface. We call it the WUI code, and that was last updated several years ago to basically a code that was even 5 years before that. So it's now a current code, and what it does is acknowledges that embercast region that I talked about. So the prior WUI code didn't really fully understand how what a large area fires can spread to, and this code acknowledges, and so we've dramatically increased the area that includes where people need to build hardened structures, if they're new structures or if they have major redevelopments, to harden those structures. It's one of the major lessons that we learned from California, is that homes that have been hardened that way tend to survive at a much, much higher rate than homes that are not hardened or people don't take those precautions. And then we've also passed an update to what's called the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, or CWBP. That's our strategic plan for how we approach wildfire preparedness. And that was last updated in 2016, so we're due for an update. And we should have a brand new plan. We're working with consultants and meeting with the community stakeholders to make sure we can get that done over the next year. And then we've also started a pilot program to help get dead and down vegetation from our successive ice storms and inclement weather. Last May, our District 10 team, plus the Parks Foundation, Wildfire Division, and community volunteers joined to remove nearly 3,000 pounds of dead and down vegetation out of Great Hills Neighborhood Park. That's partly an effort to create community stewardship to make neighborhoods safer and also to save taxpayer dollars. The Wildland Urban Interface area increases the geography, increases the territory of places where people that are either existing homeowners that undertake renovations or that are building out a new building or a new subdivision would need to abide by hardened rules for how they build homes. That could be everything from making sure that there's no vegetation within 5 feet of the home. That could be making sure that your vents are covered so that when the embers spread from a fire, they can't enter a vent and ignite a fire in that home. There's a whole lot of hardening regulations around what people need to build with to make sure that they're building hardened homes. Because as we looked at the Palisade fires, as we looked at what's happened in California and places that are equally wildfire prone, we saw that those safeguards made a huge difference for whose structure was standing and whose was burnt down. Fires can spread in three main ways. One is through combustion, so proximity. One is structure to structure. But the vast majority, like 90% of fires, get spread via this ember cast. The embers from a fire go into the place, just like I mentioned with the Bastrop and Steiner Ranch fires. That's what tends to ignite most fires, and that's where this home hardening and the WUI code makes a tremendous difference, because as those embers may spread, they are much less likely to ignite a home on fire and start that new fire in a new place. Because when a whole neighborhood is protected, it's far more resilient than just individual homeowners being that way. To address that, there is an incredibly helpful group called the Firewise Alliance, and that is made up of neighborhoods and people that understand this risk. And part of what they do is get information out to their communities and work with them to assess their homes. That's a process called a size assessment. That is a structural ignition zone evaluation, and that's a free service that the wildfire division and the fire department will come out and send an inspector. In some cases, the Firewise Alliance people will be out there also, or have their own inspectors, but they'll be able to give both individuals as well as streets or even neighborhoods an assessment of how to make improvements and reduce the wildfire risk in their area. And beyond that, we've also made sure that we've upgraded the city's resources, their communication resources, in the form of the ATX Wildfire Hub. So that's been redesigned and redeployed this year, and we're trying to make sure that people have access to the best information in one place about all the things related to wildfires, whether it's emergency alerts, evacuation plans, the size assessments. All of that can be found at ATX Wildfire Hub. As part of that, the emergency management has also deployed this new evacuation strategy. And one of the things I always try and reinforce with homeowners and residents is to sign up for emergency alerts, because it's going to be hard to reach them without having that alert system in place. And that is warncentraltexas.org. And it's helpful for everybody to sign up for that service so that we can make sure that we can reach people in a time of need. But we're also meeting actively with neighborhoods and community leaders to help educate them on this new evacuation strategy. Essentially what needs to happen is individuals need to be able to make sure that they've got a strategy for themselves and their valuables and their loved ones, and their pets. But beyond that, they also need to be aware of what the general strategy is for the city is when there is an emergency, whether it's a wildfire or a flood or something else. And that's going to be a very adaptable strategy, because we don't know where that's going to occur and what the circumstances will be. And so that might be a fairly flexible leadership structure. It might be flexible shelters. It really depends on where the fire, in this case, may be. But with all those resources between the size assessments, the emergency alerts, the evacuation strategies, the dead and down vegetation cleanup, and the Firewise Alliance, we're working actively to get those resources out to people, to make sure they know that we're doing everything that we can, and to make sure that they're as active as they can be. Because, as I said, we're all in this together. We need neighbors to embrace this risk so that they can do everything they can to be ready for whenever the next emergency does happen. Well, our first goal is always life safety, but we still want to make sure that people's homes are safe, their valuables are safe, and that we've done everything we can to make sure people can weather these events with as little damage as possible.
That wraps up this edition of CityView. Stay updated on what's happening across Austin by visiting atxn.tv, subscribing to our YouTube channel at atxn.tv, or exploring more at austintexas.gov. I'm Marissa Monroy. Thanks for joining us. Take care, Austin.